Hello everyone and welcome. Today is the day I finished the final model in the Tau army that I have, and namely Darkstrider. But before I get started on painting him, I have to do a bit of cleanup work. Because you see, there was a little problem with him. He got a little dropped, and bits of him came off, so I have to do a little bit of kit bashing and add a few elements just to keep him interesting. Now he had a bunch of drones stuck to his backpack and one in his hand. The one in his hand and the one on the backpack broke, and there's also some terrain behind him to his side that I broken up just to be able to more easily paint, and I will be putting it back on. Now, what I decided to do in the end was to get a bit from the XZ8 kit. I know it's a little oversized, and what I was planning initially was to mount this, and that is a little twist to this video coming in just a few minutes, but I will get to it in a moment. So, as I was saying, I know it's a little big for him, and I looked through multiple objects that I could place on his shoulder to stand out and to make him appear different, or stand out from the rest of the Pathfinders, but I couldn't find anything that I liked, and this was the best compromise I could make. So I scraped what I could and glued it there, and then I will use some liquid green stuff to fill in the gaps. I was initially thinking of using milliput like I did in other previous kit bashing experiments, but I wanted to see how that one actually works because it's a new acquisition for me, and I wanted to see what kind of gaps I was hoping to fill with that. And yes, it's much finer gaps than what milliput can handle. Now this is a very finicky model to assemble and to paint, and I can't even count the number of times I have broken the little antenna on his gun. As you can see, it's already bent over here, and yeah, I will break it and glue it back on several times during this video, and in the end I just gave up, painted painted it separately, and then attached it towards the end. But yes, this is a very detailed model, and with lots of very fine pieces that can be very hard to paint, at least from my experience as a beginner in this field. So getting back to what I was doing over here, I was just test fitting and seeing how it all came together, and then I glued it all and tried to see, try to fill in the gaps. That was the one, not to see anything. I tried to fill in the gaps with liquid green stuff, like I said. Now, not during this process, but in the painting of other miniatures and through all of my experience so far, I have indeed found that it is the best way to glue this kind of plastic using the plastic cement is, of course, to place glue on both those parts separately and leave them for a few minutes, a couple of minutes, just 1 or 2 minutes, to activate the plastic, and then put them together. Of course, I am not doing this right here because this footage was taken a long time ago compared to the release of the video, and making this video took a long time, both due to the process being quite time consuming, painting him and assembling him since he was broken and I was not in the mood to fix him, and to the fact that it was a process that did indeed take roughly around 8 hours. Now for his hand, because of the broken drone that is missing, I decided to use a hand from the Pathfinder kit, and to give him a binoculars in the second hand and have that one instead of the drone, because right now he just has an empty hand and I don't like an empty hand over there. So yeah, that's the plan. Chop off his hand, Luke Skywalker style, and glue it back on with something else. And I think this time I did take my time after applying the glue, and that's why it worked so well on the first go, because the plastic immediately melted one to another, and you can barely see it. I know I fidget with it a bit, but that's just getting into position. Once everything is dry, I come back to scraping all of the excess plastic and to fill any gaps that are left. Excess plastic and gaps because I couldn't even get the plastic piece that fit in there perfectly, so it just had some weird angles that were sticking out. So yes, I took a X-Acto knife, very sharp scalpel, and removed all the plastic that I didn't feel was necessary. And finally I get to the liquid green stuff. Now I didn't quite see how you use this, but from what I understood, it's like a filler that is based on water, so sort of like mini pot, but it's really much finer in details and so on and so forth. I got the hang of it mostly, but it's not something that I plan on using a lot going forward. Maybe on some of the Tyranids models to fill in some of their chitinins. We'll see when I finally get working on the Leviathan box. Now, after I'm done with the Tau series, because there are just 2 more videos in my current Tau series, and with that we are done. We are so done with the Tau. I'm going to hold a poll and ask what I should do out of the Leviathan box set next, either the Tyranids or the Space Marine and the entire Space Wolf army. Now, I know Leviathan has been done and it's like 2 years at this point. I'm exaggerating, it was last year, but yes, probably about a year old starter box. So yeah, I know I'm way behind schedule with how YouTube and the algorithms work, but it's my life and I do a lot of other stuff, and this is just my hobby. To smooth everything out, I use whatever tools I have, some molding tools, some dentist tools, some brushes, Q-tip, everything to just get the surface of the blend as smooth as possible. Next, I use a bit of putty to mask off the area that terrain will come in back, so I can glue it so that it doesn't get primed over and the glue sticks better in between. And that is what I did over there, and as you can see, you can still see the white plastic where it was broken off. And of course, it's finally time to base coating, and I'm using the same color I used for the rest of the Tau Pathfinder team, and that is Warboss Green, through an airbrush to get a smooth coverage over all of his armor bits, and I will only work on the detailing portion with the brush and the secondary colors and so on and so on. Okay, so I just spent 15 minutes talking without turning on the recorder. I have just lost track of everything that I said, and I'm especially sad that I don't even know what I said. Alright, back to it. I don't know if I mentioned this before. Using the airbrush here to do the base coat with Warboss Green. And one of the main reasons that I did this was to try a different way of doing things. Normally, I would have just added layers upon layers of the color, trying not to go over the black part with using a brush and fixing my mistakes whenever I can. But I wanted to try the other way, airbrushing the base coat, and then I will come back with whatever darker colors and the recesses need to cover everything. Next up, I use a bit of corn red to to base coat again all of the bits that are markers for his rank. So he's like a captain. I tried to use the same colors I did with the sergeant from the Pathfinder team. So yeah. Sorry if you could hear that. I lost my breath for a second there. And sorry about my nasally voice. Yeah, I can't really do anything about it. I'm constantly a little bit cold, and I don't know what to do about it. But that's just life. And the vagaries, of course, of working on the house while it's still not yet, summer, and we get some low temperatures. Let's talk a little bit about why I prefer using the airbrush. The airbrush really does a very thin coat, and I absolutely love this. And I noticed some difference. So when I did the Warboss Green with the airbrush, it came in such a thin layer that it actually came in darker over the black primer, that when I come in with, again, just the same color Warboss Green and put it over the Warboss Green to fix a dab with a paintbrush, it actually looks quite brighter. And I'm not talking about fresh paint, which it has not yet dried and it dries darker. I'm honestly talking about it almost looks like a highlight. Right. I don't know where I left off because I have to stop to catch my breath and to do other things. So, what I'm doing next is painting the black for his cloth, for his pants, and for other textiles around his body. I imagine it would be like the equivalent of a imperial body glove, the way they say it. And yeah, it looks absolutely awesome. Besides, these are the colors that I used for the rest of the Pathfinder team squad, and I want to attach him to that during games. And I was saying about the thick coat versus thicker coat by brush rather than airbrush. And what I wanted and what I was saying was that when you use the airbrush, it goes in very thin and almost transparent, and some of the uh, darkness or brightness of the color underneath shows up. This was a fact that I could not get using a brush, no matter how much I thin my paints. If I thinned it anymore, it would just be water with some pigment in it, and it just wouldn't stain at all. So yes, that's what I'm gonna go forward with. I'm going to use the airbrush whenever I want to do multiple transitions, and now I know how to properly do. And now that I think about it, if I did indeed have a better airbrush, maybe I could control it a bit more to stop with layers and not cover the entire, I don't know, body part. But again, thinking about it, uh, it is going to be extremely difficult, especially for models as small as this one, because just getting to each and every corner was very difficult with the airbrush to create that base coat for everything. Yeah, that's going to be fun to try, but it's gonna be in a while. I don't think I mentioned, but it doesn't really matter. If I didn't, we'll just keep it like that. Again, an airbrush is something I recommend right now for even for beginners. It's actually better if you're starting in this hobby and you have the budget to do it, to get an airbrush, because you will find that it is somewhat of a learning curve, and to get accustomed to what an airbrush can do and what an airbrush can't do. And it's better when you to do it from the beginning and know its strengths and weaknesses as you evolve in the hobby. I know I'm not the best guy to give out you know advice on this, because I just started learning the hobby, but so far that has been my experience with it. There is something to be said that you might want to have full brush control before moving on, but I'm pretty sure most people can learn two different tools at the same time, because if I gave you a wrench and a screwdriver, you would figure out pretty fast what does what and what does what, and you're not going to try and tighten nuts with a screwdriver. Now, are you? It's kind of the same thing, at least in my opinion. Boy, do I have a short memory. I said I wasn't going to make another 2 hour recording session, but it would seem that I seem to have forgotten what I said about a month ago. and instead I'm going to do an hour and a half recording session. I know we're barely 20 minutes into the video, but yeah, it's already getting a little strenuous on my voice and my sanity, so to speak. But as we say in the industry, I'm kidding. I can't. I'm gonna try to carry on. As you can see, it's usually good to get accustomed to all of your tools and to think ahead and plan how best to handle everything and to not get upset when you make mistakes, because like I just did, as you can see, there are two lovely little brush strokes on his part that I was not really planning on seeing. And one of the things that I talked about while I didn't have this thing recording is the fact that I didn't really think I understood, or I'm misunderstanding how some other YouTubers who paint miniatures are doing this, because either they're really, really good, or they really just care about how it looks on camera. And for me, when I look at a miniature, I can't just accept the way it looks on camera. And I know there are both of these types on YouTube, and I'm just happy that I'm the way I am. Let's go with that. I can't really tell who which is which of those YouTubers. I'm not gonna name names. I don't care about that. What I wanted to say is that from my experience, just doing two coats, no matter how thin of paint I use and so on and so forth, there will still be some visible brush strokes with the naked eye, whereas with the airbrush that is never the case, and that is clearly a thing that some YouTubers, at least when they showed that hey, I took it, I slapped just two thin coats on it, and then a transition, and then you see the product, in the sense that you see the final part painted to perfection. I don't know how many coats, how much time that took, how much effort went into it, and so on and so forth. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. Whereas with me, you can clearly see that I spent a lot of time trying to get everything right and fixing my mistakes and doing whatever I can in order to get it the way I want it to be. Because again, I want to use these and be proud of them. That's why I spend so much time, and I try to show everyone exactly the entire process. I don't know, it might be boring, I know it might, but I don't care. This is my journey and this is my documentation, and I want to share it with you guys. If you're interested, hey, welcome to the team. I spent 8 hours painting one little miniature, and I'm really, really proud of it. It's not going to win any competitions, it's not going to do anything, but I painted it and I'm happy with it. And I can rightly say that what you see is the way you see it looks in the pictures that I took of it in the final shots. That is the way you will see it with the naked eye as well, because otherwise I wouldn't have stopped painting it basically. And while it's still not something that I'm fully happy with it, because I seem to make a mistake usually in the basing part at the very end, and either get some dust where it shouldn't be, or there's something else that comes up in the pictures that I did not take into account. Alright, I used a bit of corn red on the rings in his hair just to give a different accent to all of the color, to accentuate more of the colors on the miniatures, because I thought it looked a little bland, so to speak. What else? What else? What else? Oh yeah. Like I said about the other YouTubers, I really do watch many tutorials on how to paint miniatures. I have, of course, plenty of favorites, such as Tabletop Time and Squid Mod and so on and so forth. I'm not a fan of their incredibly bright colors, but that other YouTubers prefer. I get that they look exceptionally well during the final shots and the painting process, but they're not my cup of tea. I'm also not really into the grim dark, put a lot of Nuln oil and oil washes on miniatures from top to bottom. I am going to try those more along the lines of panel liners, but that is my style of painting. I want to develop my own style and the way I'm happy with it. I try to highlight a few areas, again, a very few areas of the models, because I don't like all those lines. I don't find them cartoonish. Alright, I'm getting way distracted here, switching topics mid-sentence and so on and so forth. As you can see here, I am touching up some of the mistakes that I've made with the black. But as I said, when you come with a brush over the Warboss Green of the airbrush, it's going to look a lot brighter. This is an exaggerated effect right now on his binoculars because the paint is wet, but it dries even brighter. Because again, I'm thinking that this is because of the brighter background than the dark primer, and that might be the reason that the airbrush, the very thin layer that the airbrush did, is much darker. But this is actually a good thing because I can generate a highlighting effect using just the same color with an airbrush and the base coat, the really dark base coat. So yeah, that's I plan to experiment with this going forward and to figure out a way to maximize this effect, sort of to highlight each and every one of my models without actually definitely using colors or highlighting them per se with areas and so on and so forth. I really look forward to such experiments, especially on the Space Marines. Now, I don't remember if I said this, but because I lost some recordings, but I do plan on making another community poll on what I should do after finishing the Tau series. Now, if you feel that I should do the Tyranids from the Leviathan box or the Space Marine, so keep that in mind. The poll is coming in about 2 videos. Speaking of, the 2 videos will be how I take all of my Tau army to the next level by adding their decals and then making their display case, which is going to be a separate lighted display, and I want to make it portable and safe to transport because I want to reverse magnetize them, because I have a magnetic strip from which I will create their floor, and I will add tiny rivets on their bases so that they literally stick to that. I can't wait to get started on that, but that's coming a little bit ahead into the future. Wow, I really forgot. Oh no, I think this one is the last time. So yes, I got started on the secondary color, which was Tau Light Ochre on all of the accents of his war gear and some parts of his armor. And yes, getting back to the thingy, a lot of YouTubers say that they don't really paint the parts where they can't reach or that are not easily seen. I try to get everywhere I see, which is quite a lot, even when I don't have the best position to reach. And that is one of the reasons why it's really, really good to think ahead and to plan and make sub-assemblies. That is the reason I broke off the bit of terrain that was there so that I can much more easily paint it and get my brush everywhere. And just by not taking time to see whether using your skill level you can reach everywhere you want to reach with a brush will lead to problems, because you will often make mistakes trying to get the brush everywhere, like under his underneath him, like his groin area. Just getting to that, you have to find the best solution. And while in the back it might be easy, in the front you would have to go through the weapon and not mess everything up. And the good news is that I did indeed find at least one of the broken pieces from Darkstrider. So now I have to take it apart and glue back on the throne that was sitting on his backpack. This is a much more difficult process, and I end up breaking again the antenna on his gun. I told you, there will be a number of times when I break it off. Again, this is a very finicky model. I now have to scrape off all of my fillings and get it up and ready to mount that tiny little drone. It's a process that during one of the long breaks I took while painting him, I found the missing piece and decided that, you know what, I'm gonna do my best to get it as close as possible to the original. But just having to make everything again and to scrape off everything while taking care not to chip the paint again, and so that I don't have to do another airbrushing session and so on and so forth. Yeah, that takes time. One of the reasons why this video took so long. Again, I know he's a character and it takes long, and look at the size. I keep dropping it, it's so small. Just making all of these is really, really difficult, and it's one of the reasons it took about 8 hours. 8 hours, of course, with breaks and everything, not in one session, across multiple weeks actually, because you have to be in the zone, you have to be in the mood to do this stuff, even if you have the time. And there are so many distractions out there, internet, movies, films, family life, and just work around the house that you need to do. So yeah, it's not really easy to find the time and to do everything, especially for something that you want done perfectly and quickly. That quickly is completely out the window at this point. But yes, again, a whole other round of sanding, filing, scraping, just to get it back to what it would look like initially, and to be able to attach the thing and then go ahead and paint. But first I have to glue it, and again, this is the trick. The best way to do things, like everyone said, is to add a bit of glue and let it activate on both pieces. Now, I don't know if other people have had problems with that Citadel glue, but the second time I used that glue, the nozzle came off, and yeah, ever since that, I've had only problems while trying to you know, open it. I actually put a syringe needle on it just to keep it shut, and yeah, I'm probably not going to buy Citadel brand again of glue. I'm honestly right now I'm looking to getting some other form of super glue, plastic glue, not super glue. Super glue is awesome, and we have the best brand here. Yeah. Now I'm getting ready to do the terrain separately, and this is another special one because I tried making a new um, uh, miniature holder, and while again the putty is always the best choice, I tried doing with sticky tape, but this is something that I will definitely not be pursuing any further with the sticky tape or even the putty anymore. I'm sick and tired of it. And for my miniatures holder from now on, I will definitely go with magnets and uh, nuts, bolt nuts to be specific. Uh, my kids had this building set with spanners and wrenches and small nuts and bolts, and they quickly got tired of it and threw it aside. And there were a lot of nuts left, which are small enough to fit inside the miniature bases, and they can easily super glue them there, and then just use a magnet on the miniature base on the miniature holder, and it's just gonna stick there really well. I did this using the Tau XV88, which is like a big model, so for smaller miniatures it shouldn't be a problem. And just using this on stuff like this is way better. What I'm doing here is I did a base coat of standard Mechanicus Gray on the cement block broken thingy, and then dry brushed it with Wraithbone on just the edges to give like a edge highlight or worn out look. And then I came in with some Runelord Brass on all of the shell casings on the floor, and on the tiny rebarb sticking out. I didn't want to do any rust effects because I don't have any rust effects paints, so I just left it with Runelord Brass. I know it should like be steel or something and it should be rusty, but I couldn't honestly be bothered to like switch up the paints at that point because it's just too small of a area to matter. And it can clearly be seen that it's a metallic color over there, so I just left it like that, and hopefully I'll come back to it if I ever get some rust effects, just to add the dot there of rust and stuff like that. Finally, I used a bit of Nuln oil on each of the cracks in where the bullet holes should have been to give it a bit more of a depth and darkness, with a few streaks going down for a few of them, as they might be a little bit older but not too much. And then I will use a bit of Agrax Earth Shade in and around the rubble on the base. This is a very short one, and it's really fun when you're getting bored. Or maybe I used the same Nuln oil just to give a bit of shading to the debris on the bottom there. This is a fine thing that I got done in like 10 minutes tops, maybe even 5, and it's a really good way to get back into the painting mood when you spend a lot of time, because there was a lot of time between getting everything ready and restarting painting. Just keep like a really simple piece that you can finish up in a few minutes, and just do that, and just do that. That's all you have to do. And once you do that tiny little bit, then you go like, it's been 10 minutes, but I have more time. I'm gonna keep going on the main guy like I'm doing right here. And of course I started with applying a bit of a base coat on the drone that is sticking out on the small drone, and of course that was done using again Warboss Green. Damn, that little antenna on his gun! I swear, the designer made it specifically to taunt me, and I'm always so sorry. I don't always have good footage because while I think you can clearly see a better improvement on my end on keeping everything in frame, because right now I can see the phone through my computer monitor and try to keep everything in frame. That's not always possible, and I am constantly shifting in my chair and trying to get the best possible position for me to reach a certain place, and that might require me to lean back in my chair and to take the miniature out of frame just to be able to reach some parts. And that is why I am doing constantly moving back and forth. I'm hoping that when I do have a fully dedicated painting studio, I will be able to find a much better and good position for me to paint in, and everything will be in frame always. Also, I'm thinking that maybe getting a phone that films in 4K with a wide enough area, I can then just shift it to like have it cover all of my positions in such a way to frame it, and then when I need to lean back and the miniature goes at the bottom, I can just track that. I'm gonna try and see how that works out. All of the tiles on the floor I did with, again, standard Mechanicus gray, and again a dry brush of red bone, to just like I did the wall, to merge the two so that they're not different. They look the same. I could have gone with a few different colors, but I chose not to. I wanted them to be like in the same vein. Again, you have to take really good care when doing this. I'm using a fairly big brush to have as much coverage as possible, but if I were to spill over his feet, that would be problematic, especially if you had already painted them. So that would just mean you would have to waste more time into fixing all of your mistakes, just like I do. So yeah, take care when painting this, and the more you take the time to take care not to mess things up, at least in my experience, the way I see it, is the less time you have to spend fixing your mistakes, so it's actually time saved. Now you're thinking, well, you made this guy and you're putting him on tiles and so on and so forth, and how are you going to mix him into your army which don't have these details and so on and so forth? I actually thought about that, and there are a few edges on the oh god, I can't remember the word, on the base on the base, which are not tiles or the terrain, the bit of cover over there. And I am going to use a bit of PVA glue, and I will add a bit of the sand that all of the other tau units have on their bases. So this way it's clear that these guys are all like part of the same thing, while he stands out that he found some ruins to hide behind. It looks really good. Now I'm 100% sure that this guy does not get cover from his own ruins, because that would probably be broken, and that is just part of his miniature. But yeah, It would be fun though if he was always considered in like a cover or something. Yeah, so again, a bit of the secondary color, and I'm finally seeing this how this came together, because when you're painting, you kind of don't see the full picture until you're done. And again, it's been a few weeks since I held him in my hands, finding the time to edit the video and to do the recordings, because again, learning a new software to edit everything can be a little jolting. You can't use the old shortcuts, and you have to learn new ones and have to get used to holding your hands differently on the keyboard and pressing different keys. And it does take a lot of time, and then finding the time to actually do all of the voiceovers. Oh boy, that's a challenge just onto itself. But at least I'm roughly around the halfway mark with this. Most of everything going on is, from this point forward, will definitely be detailed work. But I'll see if I do manage to make another 40, another hour and a half, 45 minutes from now, video. I need to really take this down and make sure that I can make decent videos with the amount of time that I have. No promises though. Right, so more fine detail work, and what else to talk about for the rest of the video? Come on, paint something nice. I'm kidding. Just talking to myself here. Right. Again, I really have to think ahead of the paints I use, because I honestly should have gone with like base coat for the two primary colors for the coverage, because having to do everything with layers, with layer colors, can be a little daunting, because you have to do several coats, and I'm not talking about two thin coats over here. No. At some point, for some areas, especially on the XV88, I had to do like 5 to maybe 6 layers just to get the coverage, because you could still see the colors underneath the two layers, namely the Warboss and the namely the Warboss Green and the Towlight Ochre. So yeah, think ahead on what colors you want to use, and what I'm talking about here is not necessarily what you like, but rather what also has a good enough coverage. Again, there was a metallic bit on the base, and I painted that one as well using Runelord Brass, as well as the ejected shell casing. I'm pretty sure those casings are not from his weapon, because in theory that is a plasma rifle or a plasma carbine. No, it's a plasma rifle, because the carbine I think is the long version, which I don't have, and I really want to get a team of fire warriors just for those long iconic Tau weapons. I really want those next to my guys when I field them during a match. I absolutely love those. I don't really like these short ones for that the Pathfinders have. I want to have those long battle rifles that I really liked. I'm going to find a way and probably get one of those. Okay, stop thinking of buying more Warhammer. You already have 2,000 points of Space Marines with 1,000 points of Tyranids to pay, plus other stuff. Okay, but I still need to order. I just have to have it right there in the background, just in case. Just in case. No, bad ender, bad ender. I chose to do a bit of corn red again, just casually changing topics, so I don't compulsive enter Games Workshop site and buy something. I chose to use a bit of corn red on his the cloth banner thingy that was attached to his sword, as well as the again the antennas on his backpack. That again should be a sign of his seniority and his status within the army. I know it's really weird to have your officers stand out and be much more visible on the field, but it's a pretty nice visual little nod that I really like. I'm hoping that I will be able to actually add some decent decals over that, and they I don't know, won't be stuck with, because that was one of the fears that I had while thinking about this project and then the next steps that I plan to do, and namely adding the decals for the entire army. And I was thinking that what happens if all the squad markings are red and I have to place a squad marking on his red pauldron. I'm hoping that I will find a way to add those squad markings on the other pauldron, which is green, and it will be very visible for everyone. Again, this is one of the other things that should be taken into account when planning ahead for a miniature, because if you choose the wrong colors, then the decals will not be visible. Oh boy, painting the gun with Towlight Ochre was one of the most difficult parts, because it's very hard to reach all of the places. But in the end, I did manage it, and it was honestly a bit easier than what I was expecting. I think I had much more difficulties with the Pathfinder weapons than I did this one. Either it's the experience I gained and a bit more brush control, or it's the position in which these were those are placed and this one is placed as well, because a lot of it can be easily reached to, but the other side, basically the interior side towards him, can be a bit more difficult to reach. What I recommend when you do indeed make a mistake, because mistakes are inevitable, and let's say you touch his finger with the wrong color right now, don't really bother into fixing it immediately, or immediately grabbing something to wipe away or to cover that, especially if that color is black. Black covers everything perfectly, almost all blacks, especially brighter colors. So just let it dry and just fix it up afterwards. That is the best solution that I found. If you stress and break your flow, then it's just it just means time. That being said, when you do make a mistake that is on a different color, it usually pays to take the time and get a damp brush and wipe away the excess paint immediately, because especially like I said, with layers or very transparent paint, it's going to shine through from underneath, and you'll have to do at least a few coats just to fix your problem. But if you wipe it off, you might get away with just using a single coat and just fixing that problem with a single brush stroke. So yes, when dealing with dark colors, that's fine, just it really doesn't matter. When using bright colors, it does. Keep that in mind. Ooh, Yeah, getting a little tired in my voice, getting close to the hour mark, but uh, the miniature is looking fine. And again, let's talk a little. I want to talk a little bit about when I stop painting a miniature. I stop painting a miniature when I'm comfortable with it. That I pushed myself further than the previous one, but I'm not comfortable with trying anything anymore. Or feel that every time I put my brush on the miniature, I risk damaging something that I have already achieved. So that is the point where I stop. The rule of diminishing returns, so to speak. If I cannot get anything more out of it and risk too much by trying to add another brush, then it's time to stop. That is how I do it. If, on the other hand, something is so bugging me that I cannot kind of comprehend leaving it the way it is, then I absolutely have to give it another try. And it doesn't matter how many mistakes I do, I'm just gonna keep trying until it's at least to my satisfaction. It is possible that by me trying a dozen times and failing, I lower my expectations, but that is again another part of the process, the way I see it. Also, I noticed that I tend to change my mind about certain uh, colors or places to place those colors when I after I put it in. So let's take a visor for example. I decide to do a part of it black, and then I realize, oh, it doesn't look that good black, so I'm just going to go back to the base color, in this case Warboss Green. So yeah, well, this is a process, and I recommend that you can check it out how it looks, and if you don't like it, you can always change it. That's the beauty of it. You don't have to strip away paint most of the times because it's so thin that you can just do another coat over it, especially if it's like, you know, dark. It will not take anything. And as stated before, most of my time when painting miniatures is, you know, just fixing mistakes while trying to do something else. Let's see if I can get an angle and I can give you an example. It's usually around the gun. Maybe I'll get. I'm not doing voice recording while I paint because it would be very difficult. I don't know what's coming up next because I cannot remember an hour and a half of painting that has been edited a thousand times and has gone. Okay, so maybe. Yeah, okay, so check out the gun. The very bottom portion of it is not shadowed or anything like that. That is the color that the Warboss Green takes only on primer. And you can, and you saw that where I touched it, it's a bit brighter. It gives the idea of, or along the lines of a highlight or an edge highlight. So there's that. Ah, yes. I decided to come in with a little bit of wraith bone all over his satchels because then I will come back with a contrast paint like snakebite leather to give it that feeling of leather. And in order for contrast paint to fully work, and I absolutely love this, and I will probably stop priming all of my models black, is doing this using contrast paints and using this method because they really do create those contrasty shadows and everything all on their own. Now, I do still have quite a few miniatures painted, primed with black that I haven't gotten to paint with, and I think I have a solution for those as well. I am going to progressively dry brush them with gray and again off-white and white just to get that tonal variation, and I can't wait to see how that works. I was happy when I saw that a certain, well, actually certain, there are multiple tutorials from Artist Opus with dry brushing and so on, and I just love the way those looks. I'm going to experiment myself with a lot more dry brushing. Yeah, I also painted his visor, his targeting reticule. I think that's supposed to be something with white, so that I can easily come in with the blue color for that I'm going to use for lenses and give it that specific shine that his that bluish hue that screens should have. I don't know if I honestly achieved it, but it works. And also on his backpack, there were some vents or buttons or anything. I chose to paint them also white, gave them a base coat of white, so that they will seem brighter when I add the specific colors. The same I did for, of course, for the lens on the tiny drone. I would have had to do the same for the drone in his hand, but that has been broken off and it's just a binoculars now. And now I am also doing his skin tone, and I am using the Fang, which is yay, and a Space Wolf color. So there's that, but also apparently it's the color for Tao's skin. So yeah, I guess there's that. And this is one of the few points that I intentionally did a mixture of colors just for a specific highlight. After I complete all of his head and face with uh, the Fang, I took a little bit of Fang and added a bit of Wraith Bone, just enough for me to give another highlight on the top of his head where most of the light would come from, would be on, would impact his head, and also on the top of his cheekbones. So yeah, I did actually do a bit of highlighting here in order to simulate the way skin works. Of course, I added the skin tone, the Fang on his feet as well, and try to only do like the skin portions and leave out his hooves and stuff, and we'll make it look as awesome as possible and as detailed as possible. Again, painting this was rather easy and at the same time hard, because you have to rest your fingers at some point, and all of the tiny bits on the model are incredibly fragile. As you can see, the antenna is still broken on his gun because I got sick and tired of gluing it back on when I accidentally broke it. Regarding his feet, like I said, I painted whatever portion of skin I could see, and then came back with a bit of black to do the hooves. I know there are people out there who tend to take each and every detail. As you saw, I checked what I did on the other Tau Pathfinders before, and I usually worked with like a guide for this specifically, who highlight everything, who give who paint volumetrics and everything on each and every part of every. I don't have the time or the patience or the skill to do that. While I understand a bit of color theory and a bit of light theory and how they all fall, I'm not that desperate or that not desperate actually. I'm not that harsh on myself that I should try to do everything at a masterclass level. If in 10 years somehow I reach that level, okay, great, that's gonna be fine. But I'm not going to even try that. Right now, I just want to get this guy to look the best miniature that I've done so far, because again, he is the latest character that I have painted. A little bit of tidying up around the base, where I may have gone over with the fang on the tiles, and guessing that's mostly it for the skin. What am I? Oh yeah, no, I'm fixing some of the leg textures, some of the leg cloth that I missed, that I must have touched with again the fang with the blue tau skin tone. So much of fixing mistakes goes on with such a project. This is one of the things that I like about me. It's gonna take a while for me to not make mistakes, but when I do, it's gonna be so much fun. Just making a miniature from top to bottom without any mistake. Maybe I should try that as a challenge, though it has to be like a very very simple model, because I'm gonna mess it up. I'm still gonna mess it up. Thinking of a really easy model to paint. That's a big one. No, I'm looking at the Sentinel I have, and it's a really big one. And I'm thinking, you know, I'm definitely gonna make a mistake there. Alright, think of something else. And I really can't. Alright, moving on. Just a bit more tidying up. Did I mention how many times I saw this video? So while I do this, I'm gonna mention a little bit about my new editing process, because I've recently switched to Adobe, and while in Vegas Pro I used like just the arrow keys to scroll left to right, and the more you held it down, the faster it went, because that's how Pro works. And actually, no, the closer you zoom in or zoom out, it plays faster or slower, and you can get into a groove where you can easily find the right pace that you want for each and every one of your videos. With Adobe, I had to literally watch through fast forward on the video several times just to cut it down for all of the parts that were in frame or were not in frame, and to cut out everything that simply could not be used as footage. Now, I know that, and I tried to automate this process, and I tried to find ways for Adobe to make this automatic, but unfortunately, due to the limitations that I had while making these videos, in the sense that you cannot use, for example, scene detection, because it's always the same background, it's always the same thing. The only difference would be like the object, and whether or not it's in frame. Now I can track when certain things are in the keyframe, sort of. Basically, I can track whether or not a frame contains a subject or not. But, and this is a big but, it takes so long for the thing to verify a 8-hour clip that it's simply not feasible. Of course, don't expect me to say that I literally filmed everything in like the same video or anything like that, but multiple clips adding up to 8 hours, that is just not feasible for me to use that. So I had to go through it manually. I'll see if I can get anything like that. And while Adobe does offer a lot of tools that are absolutely awesome for auto editing, unless of course I talk during the entire painting process, I cannot use like the most useful one, which is just cutting out at least the part where I'm not painting anything, because again, if somebody calls me in the house to do something, or I don't know, somebody rings the doorbell, I have to stop painting and carry and go and answer the door. Now I have to cut those portions out when I post this video, so Adobe can cut this easily, because let's say I'm not talking. But what happens with all the times that, like I said, I move the miniature out the frame and you can't see it? So yes, I have to do this very, very slowly, and did it manually, which took a lot of editing hours. And then I have to watch it again to make sure that it's fine, even though I watch it sped up. And then I have to do all of the visual effects. You're thinking, dude, you don't add any visual effects, but actually right now you're watching the footage sped up about 150%, because otherwise this would have been like 2 hours and change video, and I was not going to do that. And besides, I tend to move my hands very, very slowly to make sure I don't make any mistakes, and I can get away with it, and that it looks a bit more natural. And then when I do the voiceovers, which is a complete new step, I have to play the video in Premiere in normal time and record the voiceovers using a different a different program. So yes, and then add all of the recordings into Premiere, then do the sounds, then make sure that everything is hunky-dory, and play the entire video again just to make sure the audio levels are fine. And then finally I get to render it. Fortunately, that takes a lot less time than Vegas, so that is a lot of work for just one video. So bear with me why the videos of painting miniatures take so long. It's this reason, because I don't want to have me just painting miniatures, no voiceovers, no explaining what I do or other things, or just talking. It's just thing that I gotten into and I want to keep going with. And another reason why, because here's, for example, one of the reasons that I can't really talk while painting. Okay, let's say that I do paint something, and I talk and I talk and I talk, and it's fine, and I have great ideas, and I do a funny joke, but I'm so relaxed while doing this that I took the miniature out the frame, and I have told the joke and it was funny and it was so, but I have to either leave that visual air or lose the joke during the cutting process. Not to mention all of the sentences that would be cut off, or it would be. This way, it's a bit more streamlined, and whatever I talk makes sense. As much as I usually make sense, because people have been known to tell me that I can ramble on way too much and pointless for no reason whatsoever. But yeah, getting back, just tidying up the miniature and so on and so forth. And yeah, I know. For example, I just said that line because I thought I was rambling, but I realized that there's nothing I can add because all I do right now is just fix tiny mistakes, and there's nothing new to talk about to be doing that I did during this painting. And yeah, I have to get back to me rambling on about editing stuff, which of course was something that this particular train of thought started from, but then left on a magic train ride because that's just how my brain works. Right. Oh yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the eyes because I just noticed them. I just painted them a simple black and left it at that. Why did I do that? That's a very good question, and this is one of the things that I wanted to point out. The Tau initially evolved from a bovine race of creatures when they were first encountered by the Adeptus Mechanicus back in the 35th millennium, and then they were cut off by a warp storm, and then they evolved into the Tau. But that's one of the things that I got. So they're bovine creatures. They have really big eyes and really big pupils. So yay, I don't have to do anything particular weird like big first do the white and then put a pin of black and so on. Yes, this is gonna be so much better. That's one of the reasons that I honestly prefer this, though I would have preferred more if Darkstrider had a helmet. Unfortunately, I used all of the helmeted heads from the Pathfinder team for the Pathfinders, and I don't have any extra ones because otherwise I would have given him a helmeted head. Just for that reason, that I wouldn't have to paint his facial features. Yeah. Alright, back to the editing process. As I said, it takes a while and it's a difficult thing for me to do because while okay, I can find a few minutes to edit the video, it's a process that can take several hours, and by several I mean quite a few. But getting into the groove, because it's a long and tedious process, and like I said, all of the distractions that accompany life can get in the way. And again, it's just me doing my stuff. Maybe if I did reach more subscribers and I had a lot of people joining, maybe I would look into finding an editor or something like that. But right now, I'm already sinking way too much money into this side project of mine that is hobbying, that adding more money to it, like buying subscribers or hiring editors and promoting the channel. That's just not possible. That is just it. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. All right, we have gotten to the metallic details, and namely all of the brown. I honestly don't know what those are, and not that I've done that much research, but it didn't pop out what all the things on the Tau weapons are supposed to be. I assume that the emblems on their chest are just aesthetic, not functional or anything like that. Whereas on the guns, I'm hoping they have an aesthetic purpose rather than just. I'm hoping they have a functional purpose rather than just an aesthetic one. Right. I used again Runelord Brass for this with a shading of Agrax Earth Shade on the bottom parts of it, and then or on the entire round thingies, and then I came back with just Runelord Brass for the highlighted bits, which does a very fine job because metallics already reflect a lot of light back, so it's awesome when you do it. I try to find as many points where I can add this color and as many round thingies that can uh, fit in for this purpose. So I went around and did that all over the place, as many as I could find. Especially like the one on his scabbard on his melee weapon. Not a melee weapon. I like it. He does have a combat knife over there, which is awesome. Which is awesome. Oh man, I can't wait to get for this guy to get into melee with something. It's just funny. Oh, as you can see, there are always a lot of fixes for me. I have to go around and fix after every step. Go back to the Warboss Green and just touch up everything that I mess up. Surprisingly, I don't do that much after during the panel lining sessions. No, I don't know why, but it just never felt the need to. Even if I do spill a little bit over, it can be just some grime on the weapon or something like that that can accumulate next to like the line on the weapon. And here I am checking out how everything came out. I do that quite a lot. It usually doesn't make the cut. And I realize sometimes that I take way too much paint on my brush and I have to go back, which is what I did a few seconds ago. And I ordered a few bright dots on the buttons from the binoculars. Again, I was thinking of making them like LEDs or something. I don't know if I then made it to the final step because as you can see I'm painting it over black again and I may have decided that I didn't want it after all. And when fixing something and you mess up again, it just breaks the flow, and that's when you have to decide whether or not something is worth it. That extra detail that you're trying to go for, is it truly worth it? And in most cases, no. Just drop it and carry on. And I believe this is like the first time that I saw the difference between the base coat with the airbrush and when you brush on another shade, the same color, and you see that it's a bit brighter. And I ended up with like his chest plate being brighter on the bottom where I had to do a bit of correcting, and then I had to do the entire thing by brush again because it would have been weird that the shadowy part be more bright than the non-shadowy part. And here I begin work on all of the lenses and his visor, and I used, again, I keep forgetting which is the darker color and which is the brighter one, but I used Temple Guard Blue and Baharroth Blue, and I added this to each and every one of the dots around the model that I felt like they should have like a screen effect or some type of glow, or be considered something like glass or something like that. And of course I'll come back with some other colors like a red or green for certain things where so that I break the flow and then I just have it all the same color. I did the same for, as you can see, for the binocular visor. Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe I could have used like a uh, highlighting technique with like the side of the brush to create like a black edge for the lenses that I painted blue on the binoculars to give it that feeling. But instead I edge highlighted with like the lighter of the two colors and to give the feeling that the light is sort of bouncing around there, stuff like that. The same goes for the lenses on the little drone on his shoulder. I just love the little thing. It was paint to paint, but it was awesome. It looked awesome. Just a little bit more tidying up. Tidying up is always the bane of my existence. And yes, finally, a bit of snakebite leather on the pouches. Usually I would do the belt as well, but for him it was less visible because he had so much clutter around his waist, and I did the belt buckle with like lead belcher, and I felt like that's enough of a highlight, and I don't want to push it because it's not worth it. So I will just leave it as is. Just leave it black. He could be just wearing the black belt like the same as the pants and so on and so forth. Pants, trousers. There's a difference between Americans and UK. It doesn't matter. Again, I'm rambling. And yes, I finally got to the and small antennas on the drones, landing pads, whatever things they are, and whatever else metallic that I did not use Runelord Brass, and instead for those I used lead belcher to to differentiate easily between certain elements. If I made everything Runelord Brass, it would have been really weird and awkward. And yes, there are a few excuse me, there are a few grills on the weapons that I painted with lead belcher. And this is the portion where we come to panel lining, for which I used both Agrax Earthshade and Nuln oil. I used Agrax Earthshade, as I mentioned, on the coppery metallic bits, and I used Nuln oil all over the lines on the panels, on his weapon, on his armor, on all of the antennas. I don't know what to call each and every one of those. I have a Tau Codex with all his items in theory, but I honestly don't know what they are. And again, it's a 9th edition Codex. I don't think the 10th edition Codex is out yet for the Tau. I could be wrong. I don't know. I don't have the money to buy it anyway. And if you by any chance heard some disturbing noises, it was just me taking a drink so I can keep talking. Normally I would pause the video, but we are close enough to the end that I don't want to stop for anything at this moment. So just a little bit more of your patience before I get to the outro and me asking you to, the works. Let's see if I got into frame any of the other details work that I have done on this guy. I have no idea what I'm doing here. Oh, well, more panel lining, as you can see. I love the way this thing uh, goes into the recesses. I can't wait to test out how well oil washes work in this regard, but I can't really do it at home because, again, I have a single studio that is both my work office, my living room, my bedroom, where me and my wife sleep, and playroom for the kids sometimes. So when you have a room like that, you can't and share it with other people. You can't come and put out white spirits, regardless of how odorless they are, and so forth, and expect people to live in the same place as that. My wife actually had a coffee fit when I just used the airbrush in the same room with acrylics, and I was fine, and I was right next to it. But she had a coughing fit. She seems to be somewhat more sensitive to it than me. So yeah, it's perfectly fine and normal. Not everybody tolerates the same things, and I already bought a mask that I plan to use going forward once I move my studio to the house. Speaking of, in case you haven't seen the video with barbecue, that's another step in me being closer to moving my studio over there. Because for the entire summer, I plan to be able to work from there as well as stay there the entire summer. So yes, at some point in time, we will have to move all of our stuff there, and me having to move all of my studio and use the previous one. If you remember, the first studio I made, which is going to be temporary until I get the big one set up. Right. So we're really close to the end now, so I'm going to start the outro, and because there's not much else that I do on this model except line shading. So if you enjoyed this video and really want to check out how I take all of these in a single video, all of the tower models to the next step with some decals and maybe just a few highlights here and there. I'm not promising anything. I don't know what's coming, but seeing how I can improve them even further to make them a bit more professional. Then hey, subscribe, check out the channel, like the video, share it with a friend, help me grow, and I'll see you in the next one. And if that's not your cup of tea, then stick around for just 2 more of these hobby videos where I make a portable display case out of a old wine bottle box, wooden wine bottle box. All right, I'm just going to stop talking right now after I mount the piece of terrain that was broken, and that's it. That's all of the steps. I already mentioned that the bottom part of this miniature, the base, will also receive a light dusting of sand to make it fill in with the rest of the army, and that's it. No more talking from me. I will let you enjoy the final shots after I just ask you one final time, if you enjoyed the video, please subscribe, like, and share it with a friend. Alright, bye bye. I'll see you in the next one.